Is this it? Okay, so let's take a look at something we're talking about last time, and then we'll transition into isolating morphemes and doing word diagrams. Okay, last class, as we were discussing the characteristics of inflectional and derivational morphemes, and both of these, that particular lecture has now been posted at Canvas, by the way. Okay, we talked about how derivational morphemes are not very productive, and we illustrated it through the example of the ABLE. So we said with wash, use, read, and love, all of these verbs take direct objects, but go, cry, sit, and die, they take prepositional phrases, not direct objects. So for some strange reason, I haven't really figured this one out. I don't know exactly why, but the ABLE affix, it likes transitive verbs, which are defined as verbs which take objects, but the ABLE affix does not like intransitive verbs, which means verbs which take prepositional phrases. So that one's kind of weird. Now, the next one, it makes a lot more sense, at least in my eyes. So we're looking at ABLE for a minute. No, not ABLE. I'm looking at the wrong one. Looking at like. Let's move this on a different page. Okay, here we go. So let's put them all together here. Okay, now let me get my annotating going on. And if my Zoom freezes up, I'll Control Alt Delete. I'll exit. I pop right back in about 30 seconds if I have some problem. Sometimes when I do a lot of annotating, the Zoom thing will get weird on me. Okay, so the question here is, which nouns take like and which ones do not? Right? So let's take a look. We have wife, king, human, snake, we have tree, we got fish, we have book, right? So these. But then we have idea, happiness, justice, truth, knowledge, happiness, and concept. They don't fit well with this particular affix. Idea like, you're like, I don't know, is that really happiness like? Is that a word? You know, it's kind of questionable, right? Justice like, truth like, knowledge like, happiness like, concept like. Can anybody tell me what's the difference between these two kinds of nouns? For example, wife versus idea. What's the difference in these two kinds of nouns? Does anybody know?
A physical object and a
Okay, so physical things that you can touch or see, right? Let's use this. Let's say these are concrete. We can call these concrete nouns. So how about idea, happiness, justice, truth, knowledge, and concept? What do we call these?
Adjectives?
No, they're nouns. They're both nouns, but what kind of noun?
abstract.
Yes. Thank you. Exactly it. So it looks like nouns, these are also what's called uncount nouns, nouns which, well, not all cases, but like you can't say many happinesses. You can say many ideas. I guess maybe that one doesn't work. But it looks like the like, it seems to work with concrete nouns, but it doesn't like abstract nouns. But to me, that makes a lot of sense because if you say something is like something else, you're comparing it to something which is tangible, something that we can see, feel, or touch, right? So the word like doesn't work well with abstract nouns because we can't really see, touch, or feel those things. Well, you can feel them, I guess, but you can't see them, you can't touch them. They're more abstract in nature. So that one makes more sense in my opinion than the one I did before, but it just shows you in both examples that derivational affixes are not productive. They're selective. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is you might want to say, well, who gives a frog's fat butt whether they're selective or not, right? Who cares? Well, the problem is because derivational morphemes are selective and they're not productive, it makes it really difficult for children to acquire these kinds of words. Words which involve derivational morphemes can be very tough because how do children know what affix works with what word or what root? And then for non-native speakers, it also makes it really, really hard. So this kind of throws a monkey wrench into word formation. So do not expect, if you're teaching elementary, middle, or high school, and you're dealing with children who are using English, non-native speakers using English, you should anticipate they will have a lot of problems with word formation, and especially with derivational morphemes. That's the only reason I'm telling you that. So at least you can understand and anticipate what's going to happen in the future. It's tough. Even we as native speakers, right? We have trouble when we're forming words sometimes. Okay, let's keep going. So what's it say here? Let's see, we need to look on morphemes or pairing of words. Okay. It says just as free morphemes can have the same phonetic representation as an ear for hearing, an ear of corn, the same is true of bound morphemes. So notice how we have cats, we have mics, we have walks. So we have the S in each case. If you look at it here, you see the S here, we see it here, and we see it here, or right there in the pronunciation of it, right? Okay, now in this case, it says, how are the three suffixes different in these three words? So let's start with the word cat, cats. What is the inflectional function of the S in that word?
It's a plural S.
Good. What is the inflectional function of the S in Mike's? Like Mike's books, Mike's bicycle. What is that?
Possessive S.
And then what is the function of walks? If I say Sharon walks to school every morning, walks.
I would say that was more descriptive. Instead of walk, it's walks.
No. We got to get specific here. Very, very precise.
It's the third person present singular.
That's now you're speaking my language. That. So even though these three S's have the same pronunciation, they're kind of doing three different inflectional functions, or they have three different grammatical functions here. That's what you want to remember. Now, let's take a look at the next part. We have inoperable, we have intolerable, we have intake, and inside. So do all these prefixes have the same meaning? No, they don't. They do not. They definitely don't. It looks like inoperable means negative, not. Intolerable also means negative, but intake and inside is more to take in something, right? So we have to say that these prefixes, they have the same sounds, but they don't have the same meanings. So we can't even assume that if they look exactly the same, they will do exactly the same thing. That's not the case at all. So the example that I pointed out about the S's, this is kind of like the opposite of what allomorphs are. I don't even think they have a word for this in linguistics. Or if there is a word, I don't know what it is. But basically, you have the S that sounds the same, but it has three different grammatical functions. And then, of course, we have the next thing here. This is what we call an example of an Elemorph. Here, I'm going to just give you one more here. So we have cats, dogs, and churches. So in all three cases, what is the inflectional function of the S here? Can somebody tell me that?
The plural S.
Good. Now then, what's the pronunciation of the S in the word cats?
It's a Z.
No, cats. Cats.
So it's an S.
Good. Okay, how about dogs?
That one's the Z.
Good. And then churches. Churches. Iglesias.
The IZ.
Good. We have this. So it says here, what's the function of the S? It's the plural S in all three cases, but the pronunciation is changing. And that's how we get this. I guarantee you the sun will come up in the morning and you'll see that on the test. There's no doubt in my mind on that. Okay, let's keep going. So I just wanted to get to that. Here we go. Gracias a Dios, por fin, aquí estamos con la morfología muy importante. Okay, what do we have here? Isolating morphemes, right? Now, believe it or not, I will give you exactly these instructions on the test. I copy and paste these instructions and I'll use past tense here. I copied and pasted this and I put it into the test. And remember, it's very, very specific here. So it says the following words contain several morphemes. Divide each word, number one, divide each word into its component morphemes using the plus symbol. Now, please don't invent your own system. There's a system in place for describing and isolating affixes in words. The textbook talks about it. I have it in the workbook. If you invent your own system and if it's not logical and I cannot understand it, you're going to lose, I mean, huge points. We're talking about 30 and 40 point questions here. So when you see the test, just follow the steps for each question, for each problem that you're doing. Just follow the steps. If you don't follow those steps, I'm going to assume you don't know what you're doing and you haven't mastered that. So I'm not going to be able to give you points on that. Follow the steps exactly how I have it written. It's important. Okay, number two, state which morpheme is the root. And then look at number three here. For each affix, state whether it's inflectional or derivational. If it's derivational, note how it changes a part of speech or meaning of the word. If it's inflectional, note the grammatical information it adds to the word. Okay, so what am I saying here? Okay, I'm saying that with derivational morphemes, if you say something is derivational, you have to base your logic on one of two things. It's derivational because that affix affects the meaning of the word, especially if it's a prefix. Or it's derivational because it changes the part of speech or lexical category of that word. You have to base your explanation on those two things. Now, if you're saying it's inflectional, this is where it gets tough, right? If you say it's inflectional, you have to base this here. Get it right here. Yeah, if you say it's inflectional, you have to base it on one of 8 possibilities, not 2. So the inflectional part of it, this is the more difficult part of this course right now, because you have 8 different possible reasons why it's inflectional. There'll be 8 of those. Remember what I was saying earlier, right? I gave you guys some way of remembering this. You remember when I said the 3 S's, the 2 EDs. I said the ING, the ER, and the EST. You need to memorize these. You got the three S's, right? You have the third person present singular inflection S, you have the plural S, you have the possessive S. Then you have the simple past ending and the past participle ending. Then you have the progressive or continuous ing. You have the comparative and the superlative erest. Now, if you're not willing to memorize those 8 things, your test will be a catastrophe. It's not going to work well for you, I promise you. Now, if you're willing to take a few minutes and make sure you know this, right? Then when you start the test sometime next week, when I open it from Sunday all the way through Saturday, when I open it next week, right? So you start that test, you have some blank sheets of paper. You say, Michael, I'm going to write down some notes right now. You show me the paper, whatever, then write down those notes. This is the first thing you want to write down right here. You want to write down 3 S's, 2 EDs, ing, er, est, and then give example words and then name what those inflectional endings are. So then you're working, you have the list, you have it written down. Then once you start isolating the morphemes on the test, you can use your list to help guide you if you think an ending is inflectional. So I think this will dramatically increase the possibility for you to accumulate as many possible points as possible in the morphology part of the test, which is probably more than, say, 60, 70% of the entire points. So keep that in mind. Okay, let's go back to what we're saying here. Okay, so we have 1, divide each word into its component morphemes using the plus symbol. State which morpheme is the root, and then we have this one. So here's an example. So let's see what it looks like here. Remember that you have to justify your responses. So here we have dislike. This should be a D here. So you have dis plus like plus ed. Good. You get points for that. Like equals the root. You get points for that. You're in great shape, right? Now, if you look at what you've done, you have 2 things you need to do here. You need to figure out what dis is. You need to figure out what the ed is. So notice how I kind of go in order. Dis is derivational, changes the meaning to not. That's enough. You have the ed here is inflectional past tense ending, and that is enough. So this is basically a 30-point question. Right now, what you'll do is, many of you'll say derivational, but for the wrong reason. You'll say inflectional, but for the wrong reason. So you might not get all of it. So you'll say derivational, it changes from a verb to an adjective or something. But it doesn't really change the part of speech of this word. Dislike, disliked. It's still working as a verb. Even if you put it in front of an adjective, it's still kind of a verb there, occupying an adjectival position. So if you said derivational, but for the wrong reason, I would probably give you, if that was the only problem you had, I would give you 25 points on it, or 26 or 27. I don't know exactly, something like that. I'll give you most of the points, right? I'll do the best I can with it. Now, how about reusable? Notice you have re plus use plus able. That's the first step. Second step is use equals the root. Then we have to deal with 2 things. We have to deal with re, we have to deal with able. So we'll say re changes derivational, changes meaning to again. Check. We say able is derivational, changes from a verb to an adjective. We'll say check. Now, how do we know that, right? So if we look at the word reuse, right, which is what we're looking at here, and then we go to reusable, like that, we are going from a verb to an adjective there. So you want to show that how it's changing in its lexical category there. So these are the basic steps. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. So I'll do the first 2, and I'm going to let anybody in the class, whoever wants to, you can go ahead and annotate on the paper here. So my first step here would be watch, and then I would say here, that would be my first step. And then the second step, really easy. And then I say FUL. Anybody, what do you guys think? Derivational or inflectional? We go from watch to watchful.
Wouldn't it be inflectional?
Nope. We got to say derivational here.
Why?
Okay, that's my question. So if you look at the word watch, I see watch as a verb, right? If you say you're under my watchful eye, watchful occurs before I, so that's going to make it an adjective, right? So we'll say watch changes from a verb to an adjective. Do you guys see that? Any questions on that one? So we have to say, because it is changing, the FUL affects the lexical category of the word, or it affects a part of speech of the word. Remember, there's two things that make an affix derivational. Either the meaning changes or the part of speech changes. Now, some of you will say this. You'll say derivational changes to full of watch. And I don't really think that the meaning changes there. So I don't know. I mean, you got good intentions with what you're trying to do there, but I still don't think it. I would probably maybe take off 2.5 on it, because I don't think the meaning of the word watch changes, but it does change in its part of speech. So this one is going to take you down the wrong road, but your logic, you're trying to explain it because you think it affects the meaning when it doesn't. Just remember this one thing, Alexandria. The only affixes which will affect the meaning of a word in English are prefixes. It has to be a prefix. And in this case, this is a suffix. So if it's not a prefix, it will not affect that meaning of that word in English. Okay, let's try one more. So this is I'm going to look at it in terms of, you know how you revise an essay? You're encouraged to rewrite it in your comp class. I'm thinking of it like this. Right there. Actually, I don't need this. Why am I putting this? Who knows? Okay, so that's what I would look at first. I'm looking at revise and then revision. And if you wanted to look at it from vision and then revision, I have no problem with that either. If you wanted to look at it like that, I could see different ways of looking at it. I'm looking at it like this. So you have revise, revision, and then revisions. So the root equals revise. And then we have to say the ION. So derivational or inflectional here. Think about revise. I'm revising my paper. I will make a revision or a second revision of the essay.
Derivational.
Good. And then what's your logic? Can you justify it for me?
Revise is a verb and revisions is a noun.
Good. Yes. Nice. Perfect. But we're not quite done yet. But yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, revise is a verb, which is why I put verb, and then revision is a noun. So because it does change the part of speech of the word it attaches to, we have to argue it's a derivational, non-inflectional morpheme. Finally, we get to one of the different. So what is this?
It's a plural S.
So we're going to say the and there we go on that one. So you kind of see what we did here. So we start off with revisions. We have revise plus ION plus S. Then we have the root revise. We have the ION derivational verb to noun. We have the S inflectional, plural S, I'll give you 30 points on that. Remember what I'm doing? And you will see this. I'm just kind of following the instructions that we see here up above here. Just like that. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see what we have here.
Professor,
Okay,
a quick question.
yes, go right ahead.
For the S ending, just like the other 8 ones you mentioned, those will always be inflectional. It just has a different, like for the S, it's a plural, inflectional plural.
Yeah, all those 8 endings, the ones that I showed you, the 3 S's, the 2 EDs, the ING, EREST, they are always inflectional endings in English. They will occur at the end of the word after any other affixes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, 100% on that. Yes. So what I'm saying is it's a good idea with the inflectional endings. If you have that, if you write down some notes right when you start the test, you jot down some stuff, and then you can look at that. And when you do have an inflectional ending, the question is, what is the grammatical purpose of it? And see if you can figure that out. Okay, let's try. If you know how to do it, go right ahead. If you want to do it as text, you can do it that way, or you can try to do it by writing. If you have a touch screen computer like I do, it's very easy to use your fingers to write on the screen. But if you don't, it's almost impossible. But let's see if we can get 2 people to do lucidity and recklessness. So let's just worry about these right now. So number 1, divide the word into its component morphemes using the plus symbol, and then state the root, and then identify any affixes as being inflectional or derivational, and then justify your response. That's what we want to do right here. Let's see how you guys are doing, if we can do this. Hey, somebody in my 3060 class came to class without a mask. I'm not joking. Didn't have a mask on. I didn't throw her out, nothing like that. The student used some kind of something like this, right? And I probably should have kicked her out, but I didn't. But next time, I'm going to make sure I bring some surgical masks. I have some in my office. So if this student comes back, I haven't seen this person for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So if this person comes back on Thursday, I'm going to have the surgical mask. I'm going to give her a mask. I have them they're sterile inside a bag. I'll give her one. And then if she refuses to use it, then I'm going to ask her to leave. But I'll try to be a gentleman about it. I do not want to cause problems with students, period. I will always lose. Believe me. I've learned that the hard way. There's no point in getting in power struggles. You guys have a lot of power. And I know that. And you know that, right? You guys can evaluate us. Believe me, that these evaluations you do, they carry a lot of weight. So I don't want a lot of trouble. Okay, let's see what we can do here. Lucidity, I'm thinking 2 here. You have recklessness. I'm thinking 3.
I put my response for lucidity in the chat.
Okay, you want to walk me through it? Tell me what to do. I'll do it right now. Go ahead. So what's my first step?
So lucidity would be broken up into lucid and itty.
Good. Okay, good. You can
Lucid
just,
is the root.
and then
And
ITY.
IDY, or IDY, yeah, would be a derivational
Good.
because it is an adjective to a noun.
Yes. Nice. Good. Because did you have a lucid dream last night, or the lucidity? There's a song by Queensryche. Did I just do that? What happened? Maybe I did. There's a song by Queensryche called Silent Lucidity. So that's it. So 10, 20. Really, this is a 20 point. If it's a 20 point, you get 20. Okay, recklessness. If you don't want to do it, can somebody walk me through it and I'll do it for you?
I'm gonna try, but would it be rec plus less plus ness?
Good. Yes.
And then the root would be rec.
Okay.
And then for not sure for that, the rest.
Okay, well, let's go from rec. It's a little, usually we'll spell rec with like W-R-E-C-K, but in this case, you can kind of look at it like a verb. That's probably the best way to look at it. So if you go from rec to reckless, it's changing from a verb to what? How
So
about
an
this?
adjective?
Yes, good. So don't be a reckless driver in the freeway like these jackball people going down the pass every day. Boy, what a bunch of idiots. Going 100 miles an hour in and out of traffic. That's reckless. Reckless. They missed the bumper of a big rig by like 6 feet. And they're going 100.
I've had somebody like in a big truck. They were tailgating me and I didn't know whether if I could change lanes because if I put my brake, they were gonna hit me.
A big rig was running up
was-
your rear?
No, it was like those Ram 3500s.
Oh, yeah, somebody like that. Yeah. Yeah, you got to watch out. Okay, we got so verb to, you said adjective, right?
Yes.
Okay, now let's start. Now notice what we do here. We have the ness, right? So we're going to make the same argument here, right? Notice how we start with what we finished with last. We start with an adjective to what? So it's going from reckless to recklessness.
So would that be a noun?
Good. You kind of said it with rising tone, like there's some uncertainty there, but yes.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, happy, happiness, reckless, recklessness. So in this case, that's kind of what it looks like. 10, 20, 30, 40. Right? So if you get part of an answer right and part of it wrong, believe me, I'll give you some partial points on it. So it'll be really tough with a 40-point question to only get 5. If you only get 5 points, maybe the only thing you did in the whole thing would just put root equals rec and you did nothing else. Right? You'll probably get 5 to 10 points on that, but you missed everything else. Okay, let's try another one here. Okay, this will be really easy. Let's do rights first. Can somebody walk me through this one?
Right plus S.
That's most of us can at least do the first part, right? And then we have the root equals. That's easy. And then the S.
Singular third person. Wouldn't it be?
Good. So we'll say the third person singular.
And it would be inflectional.
Yeah, and we have to put that in there. Exactly. There we go. Now you should pray literally to hope you get number 6. But to your dismay, I won't give you 40 points on this one. I'll give you 10. So drive. Then what?
The root is drive.
You'll see it. You'll see one like this, but it won't be worth a lot of points. That's it. How hard is that?
Knowing
thought that's the
itself,
myth-
I would overthink it.
No, don't overthink it. To overthink it would be to transcribe it, but really, what can you do? There's no other affixes in the word. There's nothing. There's not a prefix. There's not a suffix. You can't break down drive into anything other than that. You're done with it. That's it. So when you see a word on the test that's just a really short word, it's a free morpheme, and it cannot be broken down to anything else. That's what I want you to do right there. Now, what if somebody says inflectional, if you say the inflectional plural S ending here, right? For this, I'll take off 5 points. You'll still get, what is this, 20? You'll still get 15, 16 points out of 20 on it. it isn't the plural S here, but you did say it's inflectional. So I give you credit for that, but the Y is not good, but at least you did identify it as an inflectional affix. So that's at least something. Okay, let's keep going here. So we got more practice. Okay, conceptualizes is a big one. This is minimum 40 points. So let's think about this. So let's break it up. So let's break it into at least 4 parts here. So what do we do?
Concept. And then conceptual, so UAL.
And then what?
Conceptualize.
Good. And then what?
And then the plural S.
Good.
Not plural.
No, not the plural S, but an S.
Not the plural S. I just misspoke. I promise I know it.
Yeah, definitely. It is an S,
Not
right?
the plural S.
We're going to figure that out in a minute. We're going to figure out what that S is doing. So then the root is pretty easy. And then we got to work. See what I'm doing here? Why don't you just do that, guys? Just put them all down right away and then see what you're going to say about them.
Professor, what if we were to put after concept and then the plus, if we were to put UAL, would we get points wrong for that?
No.
Okay.
No, it's still fine. No, I just put AL because that's the ending. The U is put into the word to kind of help it smoothly go from one syllable to the next. But no, that's fine. You can put ES on the end. I don't care. It's still the S. Okay, so AL, what is that? Derivational or inflectional?
It's derivational.
Good. And then what we do is, why did I start way up there? Who knows? Right? So look at what you can do here, right? Look at what we've already done. And then ask yourself, okay, if you go from concept to conceptual, what's happening there? It's changing from what to what?
Noun to adjective.
Noun to adjective.
Good, exactly, right? So then you have to look at the next thing. You have to say, okay, if we start here at conceptual, but then we go from conceptual to conceptualize, then we have to figure out what the heck is going on here. So what is the IZE doing?
Derivational from adjective to verb.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now you're speaking. Now, do you guys see? Do you see the light? Why I spent all that time on parts of speech? You remember we talked about parts of speech over 2 different class sessions?
Yeah.
And guess what's going to happen in syntax? Are you kidding me? The first thing you have to do is you have to look at the sentence. John went to the store last week and you have to label every single thing in the sentence. You have to label every single word and what the part of speech of that word is. So that discussion I did, it's a springboard for both morphology and syntax. And let's face it, you got to know parts of speech if you're going to be a teacher, because your students, if they're writing and they're speaking and things, they don't have good control of parts of speech initially. So you have to design activities and things to help them use nouns and adjectives and adverbs and verbs to use them more competently. You have to kind of help them. Whatever grade level you're working with, there'll be lesson plans and there'll be curriculum guidelines to help you when it comes to word formation. I guarantee you that. Okay, let's go to the next one. How about the S? So now we look at conceptualize, we know is a verb, but conceptualizes is also a verb, right? So we know that. So then the question is the S inflectional or derivational?
It's inflectional.
And
would
then
that be third person singular?
you're good. Inflectional third person singular ending there. Good. So we got it. Okay, now let's take a look at misrepresenting. So look at this, what we just did though here. So So basically what I kind of do on my mind here is I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, crap, there's 5 things in here. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things you're doing here. Good gracious. Hijo de la, this is a big one. So maybe it's like 10, 10, 10, 10. What is this? 50 points? This could be like a 50-point question. Because there's like, I'll give you 10 for everything that you do there. You know, there'll be like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay, let's try the next one. Okay, misrepresenting, right? And you can say present or represent as a root. I wouldn't care either way. I'm fine with it. If you want to start with present, that's fine. So if we did that, let's say we start with present. Can somebody help me break it up here? So we have miss plus what?
Plus re, then present plus ing.
This is the one that really throws you guys into the twilight zone. I'm not kidding you. So remember, ing just simply say progressive or continuous. That's all you need to say. Don't say present, progressive, past. You don't need to name the verb tense because you don't know the verb tense because you don't see the auxiliary verb. The auxiliary verb indicates the tense. So put this in your notes, Nicole. When you see ing, just simply say it's the inflectional progressive or the inflectional continuous ending. That's perfect. This is the one, everybody gets hung up on this one. I'm not kidding you. I've been teaching this class since the late 90s, believe me. The ing, people have just brain freezes. They just freak out when they see this one. They don't know what to do with it. You'll call it derivational, changes from a verb to an adjective, and I just don't see that. It's ing, it's an inflectional ending. It's continuous or progressive. Don't overthink this stuff. Okay, so then we have the root equals what?
Present.
Yes. And then we have, and this class is a little bit long today, but none of my classes are ever long, right? But this one will probably be here at about 3:30 because I want to get into some trees here in just a minute. Okay, then we have miss. What is this? So derivational or inflectional?
Miss would be derivational.
Good. So changes, remember it's a prefix meaning to what?
Verb to noun.
No, meaning.
It goes from like it is to it is not.
Good. So some type of negative, right? You can even just say negative is fine. Okay, so let's do re.
Can you unfreeze it?
Can I what now? Say again?
Unfreeze it. I can't see the screen.
Oh, you can't?
No.
Crap.
It shows the screen, but it doesn't show that you wrote anything at all.
Right.
Of course not. Okay, hold on. Let me see what the heck is going on. Okay, hold on. I told you I might have to do this. Okay, I'm Control Alt deleting here for a minute. I'm going to get out and come right back. Give me a second. Let me look at the Zoom meeting. Sometimes it just gets weird.
If you're muted, Professor.
Oh yeah, automatically mutes me. Okay. Okay, I think let's go back again. That's what I'll do. Is that better now? Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's deal with re. So derivational or inflectional?
Derivational.
Good. And then changes meaning to, remember, prefixes affect the meaning, right? And it's definitely miss and then read. These are both prefixes. So changes meaning to what?
Again.
Good. You still got that rising tone. And then this one, please don't let this thing be a pesadilla for you. Get this. You can do this. It doesn't have to be how to in Spanish, right? Una pesadilla. You can figure this one out. Now, this is one of the 8 endings. Agree? It's one of those 8 grammatical things. So we have to say it's inflectional. Any questions on that? But the inflectional what? What do we say now?
Continuous or progressive.
Good. I know how to spell progressive easier than continuous, so I'm going to put that one because the continuous throws me CONTINUOU. Forget it. I hate spelling. Okay, what do we got? Okay, here we're almost done. Okay, let's look at these. Okay, we're going to be here to 3:30. If you can't take it, just disappear. But I'm gonna spend more time today to set this stuff up. So subcontract, right? Let's say 2. So we break it up into what?
Sub and contract.
Contract.
That's it. And then we will say root. And then sub. Notice it's a prefix, so it definitely affects the meaning. That's what we want to figure out. So derivational or inflectional?
Derivational.
Good. So we'll say derivational, and then changes meaning to what? See, it's tough, some of these. Think about submarine, subcontract,
I think of like a lower contract.
good. So you could say to maybe under or below something. Yeah, the subcontract will be you subcontract. You're the person who has a contract to build the house, right? But you subcontract things for the electrician, for the plumber, or whatever. That's what building contractors will do, right? You have the ultimate building contractor who has the license and all that, then they'll subcontract different specialty things with the house. Okay, let's take a look at itemized. What did I just do here? How did I do that? I don't know what happened. Get ready for this stuff. Does that give you a heart attack or what? You see what I'm saying about parts of speech? Determiner, noun, verb, determiner, noun, preposition. You see what I'm saying? I have no idea how I even got to this page. Let me get back to it. It's like going to YouTube. You end up watching some 10 million viewed video about ants. You ever ended up at the ant YouTube channel? You're like, how the heck did it even get here? Look at all those trees. It gets my blood pumping. I get excited about teaching this stuff. I know you guys, it's a horror for some of you. I apologize, but I actually like talking about how our language works. We got a great language and it's got all the parts. It's systematic, it's complex, and it can be learned despite all its complexities. Non-native speakers can learn it, and children certainly can learn it, and they do. And you guys are going to be the ones to help them acquire it. You're going to do this, whether it's first, second, third grade, whatever. You're going to be part of that process. That's exciting. Okay, here we go. So I'm back to where I was a minute ago, right? I want to get to. Okay, let's look at itemized. I turned on the heater, if you can believe it. Now I'm getting. Let me turn off the heater. Hold on a minute. It's too much. Say goodbye to that. Oh. it brings back bad memories. I turned on that heater last November when I got COVID-19. I was just shaking and shivering, and for 4 weeks, I was just, it was bad. That heater kind of brings back all those terrible memories. Okay, itemized. So you got item, itemized, right? So we break it into item, then what?
Plus eyes plus ed.
Good. So then we can identify the root. And then we just have to work with each one, right? If you want to do this, if this helps you, you can just put them in order, make sure you don't leave anything out. So the IZE is what? What is it? So you go from item to itemize.
Derivational, noun to verb.
And then the ED.
Inflectional.
Yes, inflectional what? I itemized my deductions on my last tax return.
The past.
Good. You could even say this, inflectional past. Or you could say either way, I'll give you credit on this one. You could say I have itemized my deductions. Use what's called present perfect. In that case, you have what's called the past participle, which comes after the auxiliary verb. But see, you don't know the context here. So if you just say past tense or past participle, you get points either way. Okay, that one's good. We got 2 more. We're almost done. Got 8 minutes. This is about what it takes to get this done. Okay, disassemble. So if we break this into 2 parts, what do we get?
Disassemble.
Disassemble.
Good. And then we have. Now, what you guys want to do is, I mean, this is not rocket science. This stuff is not impossible to learn. You can learn it. But if you just put it off and don't do any practice, you know, tomorrow or the next day or the day after that, it's like a cross country runner who doesn't run during the whole week. All of what you've done is lost. You're not going to gain anything if you don't run for the whole week. Or if you're in a linguistics course and you wait several days without practicing any of the materials, you've not gained anything. In fact, you won't even remember what I talked about in the last lecture. So remember, you should be practicing all of this. When we're done today, you should practice today, tomorrow, the next day. Make sure you stay current with the IPA. You do some practice with that. So you don't try to cram all at one time. It's like my mom and dad, they used to do Christmas. You know, we didn't have a tree or anything on the 23rd or 24th of December. And all of a sudden they want to do all the decorations. Well, guess what? It created so much stress. We'd have these big blowups. I had 3 older brothers. We're punching each other in the head, and my brothers got me in a headlock, and then I punch him in the face. It gets nasty. You want to wait until the very last minute. It gets very stressful, and then people start doing stupid stuff. You start yelling at your significant other or whatever, or your kids, God forbid, you know. But do things in advance so you don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. A lot of people, like my family, can handle a lot of pressure, and they start blowing up at everybody and everything. So you have this one, and then this. What is this?
Derivational.
Good. Yeah, there. And then why?
Changes meaning. I don't know if it's right. It changes meaning to like undo.
Good. Or to take apart. Yeah, that's good. Perfect. So I was thinking, you know, dissatisfied is different. That's definitely negative. But this is, I threw a curveball at you. Disassemble, it shows you how dis can have different meanings depending on what it attaches to. Okay, and finally we get this one. So we got reintroduction. So how do we break this apart?
Re plus introduce plus shun.
Good. Then the root.
Would be introduce.
And then we're just going to do what we did before, right? We take this one, we got to figure this one out. Then we got to figure the other one out. Remember too, don't give up, and please don't leave anything blank. At least attempt it. If you're not in the class but watching this video here, at least try to do the question. Because if you don't do anything and you leave it blank, these are free response. How I can't give you any points. I can't even give you 1 point. But if you do something out of 30 or 40 points, maybe I'll at least give you 5 or 6 or 7 points just out of the kindness of my heart. So don't give up. Try to do as best you can with whatever knowledge you have. Try to do the problems as best you can. Okay, Ree, what is this? Derivational or inflectional?
Derivational.
Okay, why?
It changes the meaning from introduction to doing another introduction.
So we'll say change the meaning to again. Okay, how about TION?
Derivational.
Good, same thing, but for different reasons. So don't go on autopilot and say changes to full of whatever. No. So it's changing from reintroduce to reintroduction. So it changes from what?
Verb to a noun.
Good. There we go, like that. Okay, now the next step, I wanted to do that. We got just 3 more minutes. Now notice kind of what our next step is. So there's 2 ways to visually represent affixes when they attach to a word, right? One way is to do what we just did. In my opinion, this is the more complicated way because you have to look at each of the affixes and they determine how they affect the word, in terms of being inflectional or derivational. That's tough. That's what we just did. Now, for the easier way to look at it, but it doesn't give you complete information, but at least it shows you when you do a word diagram, it shows you how the word's changing in terms of its part of speech. So you look at the word reconstruction, right? You have re plus construct plus ION. So we start off with construct. Notice I have 1 line here that I draw, and I have what is called a verb here. And then we have reconstruct is the next word, which is also a verb. And then reconstruction is a noun. Now, guess what? Many of you are going to do this. You're going to do this. And I will give you points this way too. I'm very flexible with this. Now, here's the bad news. It isn't easy to use your keyboard necessarily to do this, but it can be done. And I'm expecting you to practice on your computer with your keyboard to do this. So my first step on the keyboard is you have the I, O, and the P. Then you have the brackets. I'm going to put shift, and I made a line just like that. And right above that line, I'm going to put the verb like that. Now, instead of saying reconstruct, you can also go this way. Watch what I'm doing. So I do a line here, but now I want to show how these connect together. So I'm using I have the forward slash and the back slash, and I'm using them together to help me make the diagram. You have to do the same thing with sentences. So I have right where the question mark, I did that one. And then over here, and then this is called a noun. And this is where it gets really kind of squirrely. You ever see a squirrel run through you ever watch these squirrels? They're the lowest on the food chain, and the rabbits, I see them in my backyard. Once they're out in the open, they run like crazy. They don't just dilly-dally around. They run from one place to the next like their life depends on it. And it does in many cases because all the hawks and the owls, the coyotes and bobcats and everything else, they have to really think ahead. So here, notice how I'm going up. Notice how it knocks off that one. So I have to backspace. It's going to mess it up again. I just do a backspace to correct it. Do the same thing here. I know it's a pain in the neck. You see what I did there? See how that one looks? So I did this only using the keyboard. Now, Jose, it's quite possible when you do a diagram into Canvas, right, and you save it, it might shift things over a little bit. I understand that, but as long as I can read it and understand what you're doing, you'll get credit for it. If it's a little bit off, but I know it was off because you saved it and maybe knocked it off a little bit, but everything looks accurate, you will still get the points on that. It doesn't have to be perfect in terms of the symmetrical line. You can even see mine. Mine's not perfect here. This one could be a little bit better. But I'm not splitting hairs over that. So what you're telling me, if you do this, if you do it like this is all I want to know. You're saying that construct is a verb. You're saying construction is a noun. And then you're saying reconstruction is a noun. And that is absolutely correct. And you're going to get 30 points for that. That's kind of what it looks like there.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So looking at the way you branched out for the last one, like right above it, the example you give, how you go with reconstruct first,
Yeah.
or shouldn't we address reconstruct by branching off from construct as well? Because in theory, you could address the noun and verb from reconstruct and then construction by just adding an additional line. Or would that suffice? Does that
No,
make sense?
I think you're doing too much on that. I don't think you need to do all that.
Okay.
To me, there's 3 parts, not 4 here.
Mhm.
You have the root of the word is construct. So at that point, do you want to go from construct to construction? I'm saying that's fine. Or do you want to go from construct to reconstruct? That's also fine.
Okay, so either way, as long as we're addressing how it's changing.
That's right. Just need to make sure that you're addressing how it's changing based on what you did. Now, what I'd recommend is take some time to do some practice with both isolating morphemes. In my opinion, that's the hardest part. And then this part's a little bit easier, but do practice in both areas. And then on Thursday, we will do more trees. We'll do a lot of tree diagrams on Thursday during Thursday's class. And that's what we got.